remember him saying, he's like, the reason why your dad failed is because he didn't do it the correct way. And I was like, wow, I don't want to do anything about business. I seen it destroy our family. From, like I said, sleeping in a nice house to like being in an attic on an air mattress. Like, how does this person make me better at shooting content, strategizing on my content, and making my brand pop out more than the person next to me?
I want to get everybody that comes into contact with me to make $10,000 a month, which is a lot of money. But
Yeah.
my message is I wanted to have you on just because we've worked together for quite a while, and I've respected what you've done in the short amount of time that I've known you and that you've been here. Um, these conversations I want to be valuable to anybody who comes across you and they understand who you are, what you do, and if they ever want to work with you in any capacity. But I also, on the second half of that, is a lot of my audience is video agency owners,
Yeah.
and I want to be able to help them craft their services and their offers and their messaging to people in different industries so they can actually make offers that people want to buy. They're not just pitching random bullshit that no one
For
wants.
sure. For sure.
So that's kind of what I want out of this conversation. And maybe at the end we'll talk about what videographers can do to actually make you get their attention.
Oh,
Or yeah, so what can they bring to the table that
for
you'd be
sure.
like, I'll pay you. Essentially, like, why'd you end up working with me type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
For people who might not know who you are or have only seen a little bit about you, can you talk about before you moved to Buffalo? You told me how essentially you built a seven-figure net worth
For
from
sure.
going from commercial to residential to then developing. Can you just tell me about what that journey was like when you were in?
So yeah, man. So grew up in an office. My dad did real estate from '85 to 2008. In 2008, uh, he got in a little trouble and ended up. We had everything, man. We had a 3-story house, cars, you name it. That all got taken away from us, and that was 2008, right when the bubble was happening in real estate. After being in that situation, I looked at my dad and I was like, I was getting my real estate license, and I'm like, so what do I do? And he's like, I don't know, figure it out. Because I had my little brother and sister, and I went from a Corvette to a Jeep Cherokee with like 350,000 miles on it because someone owed him money or something. So he gave me this car. And so there I'm like, all right, I bombed the ACT, I bombed the SAT. I went in there and literally went A through D through A because I'm like, dude, I'm not going to college. Like, I'm about to be a real estate tycoon. And sure enough, that didn't work out. And so I'm like, all right, well, where do you go from here? So I joined a community college, went there, realized that I'm actually I can do school just because I was always like a I guess C student, B student. Like I could do A's. I just was school wasn't my thing. Um, from there, I got really good grades, got a scholarship and financial aid to University of North Texas. I'm like, I don't want to do anything about business. I seen it destroy our family. From, like I said, sleeping in a nice house to like being in an attic on an air mattress, like, you know. And so I'm like, I definitely don't want to do that. Uh, had to get jobs, so got multiple jobs. Went to college. Started out with a degree in psychology. I wanted to be a high school counselor, and sure enough, I went to the advisor and I'm like, hey, this is what I want to do. And they kind of looked at me like, okay, well, you're gonna have to get like a master's degree. I'm like, okay, what is that? Because like I'm telling you, I didn't I didn't know anything about college. And they're like, well, you got to go additional school, so you might be here like for like 6 or 7 years. And I was like, I think at this point at the university, I was like almost 20, like 19, 20. And I'm like, there's no way I can't do this for 7 years and then potentially be a high school counselor. So finished up the year with, all my main courses and more of psychology, social work, or social studies. And I'm like, I like to cook. Growing up, like I went to my buddy's house and his mom would let us cook. My mom wouldn't let me cook. So there was like, you know, able to get ingredients together and do that. Um, so then I went to hospitality management which is a whole nother monster. I did really well in that. Worked for some hotels. Worked at some different kitchens and stuff. And then I realized that I'm like, man, this is cool, but this is a lot of time on your feet. Um, and I'm kind of going backwards. Like, do I need a college degree for this? So then I did what I didn't want to do. I ended up being in the College of Business. I still did not want to do real estate at all, just because I'm like, dude, there's no way. Did some analytics, data analysis classes, and then I'm like, okay, this is way too much. And then I went to the counselor and I was like, hey, I just need to graduate at this point. What do I need to do? And they're like, you can get a degree in HR. And I'm like, okay. So then I started taking human resource classes. Um, and I realized then I did not want to do human resources at all, just because the paperwork and bringing people into your office and telling people what, like, I'm wild enough. I don't need to tell people not to be wild, because I knew that I would just be lying to them, or like, why did you say that inappropriate thing, when I like would be like, oh, like I might have laughed at it.
Yeah, that's a funny joke.
Yeah, it's a funny joke, and then like, you're not gonna say that. And then kind of looking around too in the classes, and everyone was like HR, driven, and that was their passion, which is awesome. At that point though, I put out like 7 resumes, and I was working 3 jobs in college, so it was like I would get off of a class or get off of a shift, study, and then do a resume, do an interview, go back to work, and it continued. Had about 6 or 7 offers, job offers, from like logistics to HR to analysis at like Fidelity and stuff like that. All great jobs. All, starting off where I thought it was the crazy amount of money. It was like 50 to $60,000. But then I had like $60 to my name. So I'm like, dude, this is like 401k benefits, health benefits, all the things that I thought would be more secure. And so did that. And I don't even know why. I end up in my one of my international business studies classes. If I knew the professor's name on the top of my head, I would tell you. But went to her office and I'm like, hey, these are my job offers, and I still think about real estate, because I had people graduating um, that I knew, during the process, and they were getting into real estate, and they were showing me like, hey man, you can make this kind of money, blah 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 blah. I said, okay, man, it sounds awesome. So she said, well, let me introduce you to this guy named Bain, Dr. Bain. Went up to him. His room was like a mess. It was like papers everywhere. Not supposedly. This guy was worth like tens of millions of dollars. He acquired a lot of dirt. He was more of a land guy. Acquire land, put it through development, would sell it off to big commercial firms. And he said, I want to introduce this guy. Okay. So I went to this commercial brokerage in Dallas, and right before a shift, I was working at PJ Superstore. So I had like the blue polo, khaki pants, neon green shoes, because you're on your feet all day.
I worked Best Buy, so I had a blue polo, khakis, and running shoes. Yeah,
And that's what you wore.
Yeah.
And you're what, like, I mean, let's be honest, you weren't doing 8-hour shifts. You're doing like 12,
Yep.
13. Like
Yeah.
you were just working all day on your feet.
It's that job is the reason I refuse to wear polos.
Really?
I threw all my polos out. I'm like, it was like maybe last year, 2 years ago, where I had all these polos. 'Cause that's what I thought you have to wear to look nice.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they
yeah.
do look nice, was whatever. But I realized like I hated being in them because it reminded me of my jobs where someone else had like control over me. And I'm like, this is why I started my business,
Yeah.
so I can do what I want and wear what I want. So I literally threw all my polos out. I refused to wear them. So of course, when I got into golf, I'm like, well, shit, what do I wear? I don't know what to wear. So I found like the blade polos where it counts so I can still look good on the course.
Yeah.
But hey, real quick, I hope you're enjoying this video. Quick reminder that if you are, to subscribe. Also, if you're a video agency owner looking to scale your business past $10,000 a month, but you're having trouble getting the momentum going, follow me on Instagram and send me a DM with the word scale to learn about working with me directly. And if you happen to be a business in Buffalo, New York, who's looking to up your content game or scale your business using video strategy, send me a DM saying go Bills and we can chat.
Well, I went in there, and this guy was, took me in his office. He said, hey, you're the only reason why you're here is because of Dr. Bain. tell me about yourself. At this point, I was in some, I was in fraternity world, and basically, I did every organization that you could possibly think of in college, just to learn more professionalism, how to hold yourself, how to public speak, things like that. And he said, "Listen, man, this is what you have to do. You gotta go through the interview process. This, that, this." And it was nothing nowhere safe. So like I think it was like $2,000 a month, um, and it was kind of not an intern program, but more of it was like 6 months of like getting your feet wet, doing different deals, um, and then they'll decide if you're right for the company or not. Well, left there confused as hell because I'm like, and my girlfriend at the time was like, "We need steady income. Like, what are you talking about?" And I'm like, "No, but man," and I told you the story where like I pressed the wrong elevator button and went down to the garage, and I saw Ferraris and I saw like, Lamborghinis and all these like awesome cars. And I'm over here like I call it the turtle. And it's like this like paint falling off, no heater, no AC. So I would like change in the bathrooms before all these interviews. From a suit, from like a tank top and shorts to like a suit or vice versa. And I'm like, man, I think I want to do this. So I thought about it, and I had to call one of the senior brokers, called him like 5 times. And finally he picked up. He's like, "Hey, Colby, we've been waiting for your call."
Mm.
I'm like, "Called you 5 times." He goes, "Yeah, I know." I'm like, and I didn't even ask why you didn't pick up. It's follow up, right? Like you have to follow up on your clients, no matter who it is, they forget. I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he goes, "Come in tomorrow." I was like, well, I have work." And then he just hangs up. I'm like, all right. And this is like 2 months before graduating, you know? And the other bigger companies are like, "Hey, we need to like get your orientation paperwork, you get to sign all this stuff. Are you going to accept our job offer or not? Because we're going to put, someone else in the
Mhm.
position." And so then he goes, I met with them, did the interview. "All right, you got to call this guy." I'm like, okay. At this point, I probably should have just like went the safer route, hindsight, whatever. And so I call that guy like 4 or 5 times. He finally answers. Then I met with the actual like founder of the company. He's worth like I don't even know, a few $1 billion. And I remember we're like, I'm in the same suit. 'Cause I was working at BJ Superstore and at Van Heusen. It's like a suit dress shirt company. If you look them up, uh, so I had like the $50 suit because I got it, with my discount. And I'm sitting there just sweating because he just was looking at me, and I'm looking to my right because the guy that vouched for me is on my right, and I look to the left, and it's a senior broker, and it's him and the CEO or whatever the company. And he's like, "You know what you got to do, right?" And I was like, No, sir. What you got to work your ass off
Mm.
here." I'm like, "Yes, sir." And and he knew about my situation with my dad and all that. Not because uh it was like some widespread news, just because I told him like this is why I didn't want to do real estate. And he's like, I remember him saying, he's like, "The reason why your dad failed is because he didn't do it the correct way." And I was like, wow. And I was just sitting there like, and then you just kind of like have everything go around your head like, man, is this the right place? Like, am I in the right place? Um, and then I just remember him saying, "I'm gonna give you a chance." I was like, okay, let's do it. I didn't even have my real estate license at this point. I had all the classes done,
Mhm.
but I still had to take the test. So graduated, passed the test, started doing commercial. My dad and I always had like this rocky relationship. And so he was kind of bitter that I was doing real estate again without him doing commercial real estate. And I would take like deals to him, like, "Hey, can you help me fill out this lease?" Not give me any clues or help me figure it out. And then slowly but surely, things at home weren't working out like they needed to, and they needed my help. So moved back home, left the brokerage to like figure life out. And at this point, I'm like, I left the company. I moved back home because my dad was like, "Hey, we need to get in residential real estate while you're here." I'm like, "I have my license. Like, I can sell homes." He's like, "No, we need to start building." I'm like, he was an architect, so he got his degree in architecture. He built homes, but he was more of like a residential investor type of thing. He wasn't building while we are growing up. So I'm there and I'm like, I gotta start getting some income because my family at this point are still broke. They don't have any money. They barely have 2 quarters to rub to with each other, and I'm over here back in the attic with my little brother and sister downstairs, and just I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I here again? I started applying, you name it. Started applying around places where we're at, and they're all like fast food, um, retail. Like, man, I'm going backwards. So I ended up going to Raising Cane's, Lowe's, and then I was doing real estate. So those three things. So I'd get like 2 hours of sleep at night, and I was starting Garza Group. Um, and at that point, he knew a hard money lender, which if you don't know what hard money is, it's basically a silent partner that says, "Hey, here's X amount of money, and you're gonna pay a crazy amount of interest," which is why I had the three jobs to pay the interest payments. We started building the homes, and then the rest was history, you know?
Yeah. So you went from commercial to residential a little bit, kind of, and you learned obviously how what the market needed,
For sure.
and then you started developing those homes. And what I thought was interesting is you were developing those homes. Most people develop them to just sell
Yeah,
and build a house, sell the house, turn and burn it. But you mentioned you were building them to create your own portfolio.
for sure.
So tell me about that. Like, how'd you realize that was a way to go to actually start building actual wealth?
Yeah, so during this whole process, when I was going bank to bank, during like Lowe's and Raising Cane days, and I would go bank to bank to bank to bank. So like during the day, like so Lowe's was like from 6 to 1, and then I'd had to be at Raising Cane's at 3 till like midnight or whatever. And so during that time, I would put a suit on, the two suits I had from Van Heusen. I'd go to the bank, ask him a question, try to get the loan. Finally got a lender that was able to do my building interim loans. But I didn't figure that out until later in the game because when I was building these homes, selling them, building them, selling them, building them, selling them, and my lender at the time, she's like, "Why don't you like keep a couple?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Just put them under." By the way, I didn't know anything about financing. I didn't know, 80 to 20 loan of cost, loan of value. I didn't know that you could use land as equity. I didn't know none of this. So I'm like, well, how would that work? He's like, we'll just do permanent financing on them, run a 30-year, 5-year balloon, 30-year note, or whatever we need to do. I'm like, so that's an option? Like, yeah. So that's whenever I started building them. And if it was, I didn't just keep random stuff. It was more of something that I saw that was a tangible asset that would have an appreciation at a scale to where if I ever needed to sell it, I can make the money back. Um, so that's whenever that happened, but it wasn't my first. So my first one that I kept was a commercial deal. And I bought it with like everything I had in my bank account. I bought it and it wasn't even fixed up. It was a piece of crap, like holes in the floor. I mean, it was bad. But it was right downtown in the area that we're building in, and it was an opportunity that I took, you know.
Yeah. So you built up your own little portfolio of properties that you own and we're now getting rental income from.
Yep.
Um, Kind of fast forwarding a bit, or I guess what was the gap between like where were you in that story before when you had to come to Buffalo from Texas? Like where was it? You had been pretty established, and all of a sudden, like, did you know coming to Buffalo was going to be a thing?
No.
Okay.
No, dude. No, I didn't. So everything was going great. I mean, everything is still going great, but everything was like I was at scale. I could build homes, develop with my eyes closed. I had the backing, financial. backing, not hard money backing, like actual institution lending, multiple banks at this point. Met my wife in 2018. She kind of saw what I was doing, and then 2020 hit, of course, and I survived 2020. At that point when we were building a home, say, whenever you do a loan with the bank, right when you close on it, that's the amount. So you can't change. Like if you're doing, it's not like a build job, right? So a build job versus spec home. Spec home is the builder taking on all the responsibility. So say if you get that loan for 150, that's all you're getting. Versus a build job, it's off of the mortgage that the client's getting. So if you need to add on, they'll look, can you add on? Yeah, okay. And you just add on to a loan. So during this time, $150,000, dude, OSB is a piece of plywood that you do all your surroundings, your roof. That went from $9 to $20 in a week. And so at that point, I was just like, I mean, you just had to figure it all out. And I lost my brother during that time as well. And I co-signed for him to be a builder. So he was a builder as well. So he had some homes on the ground. And I think after that, my wife was like, and we had our son. Well, we found out we're having our son during the same year. And I'm like, man, and we're building a house next to my parents. And I'm like, man, this is kind of crazy. And postpartum is a real thing. My wife was just not happy with me, just like
Mhm.
not happy at home, not happy where we're at. And so yeah, I had had homes on the ground, I had land, I survived 2020, 2021, it's about to be the takeover. Like at that point, my scalability was there. I was ready to take it on. And she's like, think I want to move back home. And that's when I was like, I don't even know what that looks like. I have my whole business here. I have everything here. And sure enough, we came to visit um January or December through January of 2021, going into 2022, and I saw her get happy here. I saw like the old, my old, the 2018 Jenny that I met, and then that's when I knew. I was like, oh crap.
I feel like the 2020 adding on top of that has made things so much worse and harder for
Yeah,
everybody. But in a weird way, myself included, 2020 and that whole era of time, it sucks for a lot of people. But I know so many people who ended up kind of made things work out in a way.
yeah,
It's like you would never have your trajectory went a different way, but it's like this is for me personally, it's better than I could have expected. I'd still be at Best Buy. So
a
I'm
hundred
pretty
percent,
but so you kind of dropped everything and came here.
straight up.
What was the plan here? Because
I had no plan,
okay.
no plan, literally, no plan at all. Purchased a house, completely renovated it, and then I'm like, what do I do? And honestly, building wasn't even in the. I don't even think real estate at that point was even in the cards. It was just because like I worked so hard to get where I was at, through raising canes and lows and all those trials and just getting hit across the head multiple times from 2008 until now, basically, right? Just like getting hit every which way and having to figure out how to get out of it. So at this point, man, I was just tired,
Mhm.
and nothing like real estate wasn't like it didn't make me excited, you know, and it wasn't anything where I knew once I touched down, I'm gonna get in real estate. It was just like, man, and thankfully for the rental portfolio, I was able to take some time and figure it out. And, you know, my wife and I had a conversation, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do here. Like, what do I do? So I went back to what I did in 2015, started applying to places. And and you name it, dude. I mean, you name the place I applied, and I finally got a position as a travel nurse recruiter doing cold calling, right? So now we're going back to even like when I was in the office, cold, like as a kid, cold calling. But now I'm cold calling nurses and we're talking about like, hey, do you want to go to Las Vegas for this for this crap for this job? And I'm sitting there and I'm doing, I think it's like I was there 8:30 to 5 every single day, Monday through Friday. And I'm like, man, this is not what I want to do.
Yeah, and you're also sitting there making whatever you're making, telling all these nurses how much they're because I have friends who work
For
in
sure.
their staffing.
For sure.
It's like, man, I'm helping these people make so much money, and I'm just sitting. It's got to be like a mental, like almost an annoyance. Like you're sitting at a desk job where you're helping nurses travel and make a
Yeah.
shitload of money.
Yeah.
But especially during that time, like
Yeah.
it was a really hot time for travel nursing.
Yeah. And I'm just like, and I'm talking to people in the office and they're like, they didn't, they acted like when I tell them like what I did in Texas, it was like, yeah, okay. Like it was just like, dude, like, sure.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if that makes you sleep at night. And and so I'm I remember like getting home and I'm just like, I'm done. I don't and she just and my wife told me too, like, go back into real estate and figure it out. I like whatever you gotta do, you can do it. And so that's whenever and by the way, during this time too, I was cold calling real estate brokerages. No one was answering my phone call because I was taking my classes to get my real estate license, which was a whole nother freaking thing here. But so I was doing all that and cold calling these brokerages and no one was answering. So I was like, well, maybe this isn't what I need to be doing. You know, finally got a brokerage that kind of happened on accident. So I went to look at an investment and the agent told me, uh, yeah, so why don't you get in real estate? And I told her everything was happening. She was like, well, let me introduce you to my broker, who is Amy Cooper, with Own NY here. I'm like, right then I text her. She calls me next day. She's like, do you have your classes or do you have everything done? I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay, then we can get you on by Friday. I was like, okay. This was Saturday, right? So then Monday comes, and at this point, I'm gone. Like, so I'm telling everyone at the office, kind of like, hey man, I think this is like, I think I'm like 2 more weeks, I'm out of here. That circulated. My boss at the time was like, is there something that you need to tell me? And I'm like, yeah, I'm out of here. So Friday I got my license, and Friday I quit travel nurse recruiting.
yeah. I've walked out of jobs. My last job I had, I knew I was gonna quit,
Yeah,
and I just was waiting. And I've always been the type of person where I don't. It's gonna sound bad, but I don't care about my job. Like I can get a new one, I can
for
figure it
sure.
out.
For sure.
Like to the point, like if you're gonna tell me I can't do something, or if I see something better,
Yeah.
knowing that most of these places won't, if they're gonna fire you, they're not gonna give you 2 weeks.
No,
So I'm always
a
like, I'm
hundred
out.
percent.
Like, yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
yeah. So you kind of got back into residential real estate
Yeah,
here, and then that's kind of where I met you. Um,
yeah,
so one kind of common theme that I've seen through just knowing your story is being able to work hard when you don't want to,
for sure.
and that's something that I need to get better at because I like to think I can work hard, and there's certain things I can work hard on, but there's different levels of hard work.
For sure.
And what was that something you always just had, or is that something that you developed over time? Like, was this the mentality to be able to work hard even when you feel like you know, the chips are stacked against you?
Man, I don't I think, I hate to say, like, everyone's like, "It's either you got it or you don't." Ever since, like, a kid, always, like, had, like, a lawn mowing business and had, something some way, other, I was always just trying to do something and, like, make money with it versus, I guess, like, growing up, it wasn't really, like, a sport family. It was, like, business and money, and so I was just like, "How can I make some money?" And I don't know, man. I feel like in this life, like you truly are limitless if you want to be, and it comes with hard work though, right? And so many people like will see even you for an instance, like they'll see where you're at today and think that you didn't put all this work into it. You just kind of like fell into it. And it's like that daily grind of just if it's relationship, finances, spiritual, whatever, fitness, you have to continue to work to get better at it. You know, so I guess as a when I was younger, it was just like it's either you work or you don't,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I was never into sports. I mean, I'm overweight now, but when I graduated high school, I was 320 pounds.
Yeah.
I was a big boy.
Yeah.
So I never did sports, but I
Yeah.
always liked being creative and finding my own ways to do things. I never liked being told what to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of eventually over time realized like I'm not a good employee, but I am good at running my own business at a certain
For
point.
sure.
Um, and I think there's something to be said about people who just enjoy challenges. I think a lot of entrepreneurs just enjoy
I
challenges,
agree.
whether that be a physical challenge or the challenge of problem solving to make more money to scale a business.
Yeah.
Um, and you're definitely someone who doesn't shy away from the challenges to the point where I remember you messaging me that we were going to do a shoot, and you said like I had to go run a 10K, then do some showings, and then come
Oh,
to do
yeah.
content. Where did you, I guess, why did you add in running to that hard workload of trying to make
Yeah,
things work for you?
for sure. It's strictly my brother, man. You know, when I lost my brother, I went to the doctor, and I was always like in the gym like 3 times a week, 2 or 3 times a week, something like that. But whenever I lost my brother, I went to the doctor, and they were just like, "Dude, you're on the same path." My brother passed away with like heart related condition, and I'm like, okay. And at this point, like I let myself go just because it was 2020. I had, 8, 9, 10 homes on the ground. It was just a cluster, and I was like, what do I do? They're like, I don't know. What do you do to work out? And I'm like, I don't know. I guess it's not working though. And they're like, well, maybe go run. And I'm like, okay. So I remember running. This was when my wife and I were living in like Dallas, like proper Dallas, and it was kind of a sketchy area. So they had like the alley was like gated off. And so I remember just like running back and forth until I hit a mile, and I think it was like a 13-minute mile. And I'm like, is that good? I don't know. So I texted my buddy that ran. I was like, yo, man, I just crushed it. I did a 13-minute mile. And he's like, heck yeah, bro. And I was like, and then that was when I was like, and then I started looking at like, influencers, and I'm like, damn, that's slow. Because I thought I don't know, it's
That's me. I'm running 13-minute miles. I got under 10 once. I was like, that's sick. But
that
then I learned people are
yeah.
like, that's still really slow.
No, I mean, that's great, and so then I just, like I started just running, and then, that was kinda the only thing that held my composure, was signing up for crazy events. And so I remember, this, influencer, realtor, like, investor out of California, he had put this thing on. It was like, "If you follow me, run 100 miles this month," and it was like a whole group thing, and, that was the first time I ever ran 100 miles in 1 month, and I'm like, "Dang, that was crazy," and I thought it was, like, the most insane thing ever, and I felt good, and then, like, "Man, I'm gonna do a marathon." Never done a marathon before. Signed for a marathon. Afterwards, it's so funny though now to look back at it, but afterwards I was like, "Done." Like, I remember, like, getting in the car like, "Oh!"
Yeah.
Doing a salt bath,
Mhm.
and my wife's like, "What's wrong with," she was congratulations,
Mhm.
all everything. She was super pregnant then too, and, I remember finishing that, I was like, and the next day, kinda, like, limping around, and, like, the next day, and then the next day, and I started getting better and better, and I'm like, "Man, I wonder where I could take this." So that's whenever I started doing, like, the Ironmans and, um, ultra running and stuff like that, but definitely something that I just fell into
Yeah.
just because health.
What's the furthest you run in one go?
100K.
What's
That's
that in miles? Like
so it's like 60 something miles.
that's nuts.
That was interesting. And it was like 10,000 feet of elevation. That just happened last year. Um, but also like that was the time that I talked to my brother, just because you are in pain, and it's like that pain is nowhere near of a loss, right? That pain is nowhere near like what my nephews and nieces have to go through on a daily basis, or my sister-in-law. Um, so it's like, what am I bitching about? What am I complaining about? Like, you're talking about, say that 100K, it was like 18 hours. Come on, 18 hours of or of pain. At this point, it just all feels the same. But you don't have music. You're out there in the wilderness, and you're just in your thoughts, and you clear a lot of. I know David Goggins and those guys are like, clear the file cabinet or whatever. But you really do. You
Mhm.
start forgiving people that you had, some felt some type of way about. You start, man, maybe I should text that guy, or maybe I should tell that relative I'm sorry, or and you kind of just like look at the bigger picture of
Mhm.
life, you
Yeah, I mean,
know,
you're out there, the day to day falls away quick because now it's like,
100%.
is there anything that running, because you still are very active and you're at the gym this morning, I'm
For
sure.
sure.
Is there anything that running those distances or going through that physical pain that you're able to transfer into what you do through business? Like, is there any lessons you've learned through that?
Yeah, definitely. I think at that point, it's kind of like, if this is the hardest thing that I can get through today, or like if I could push my body to that, or if I could put my mindset to that, then I think it's really like a cheat code if you allow it to be. And you're in the boardroom, and what's the worst that someone can say? No. Or like they're not gonna physically hurt you.
Right.
So if you can do that to yourself and leave with a smile on your face, I think at that point then it's like whatever happens after is like cool.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
100%. Um, so moving here, you're at own. What in Texas did you have a big focus on like a personal brand, or was it kind of just build mode?
Yeah, dude, I didn't do anything as far. I mean, I did like some series, and it was mostly no personal brand. It was really just Garza Group and seeing. So that's a whole nother thing, man. Whenever I started Garza Group, I barely had any money. I didn't have any money. So my buddy Kevin Gibson, he lived with me in Dallas, and he kind of just like helped me design the website, helped me design the logo, which I just told him like, hey, this is what I kind of want. And we would shoot stuff that like no one was doing it. It was
Mhm.
2016. No one was really like doing like full videos of the house and showing the details and stuff like that. So that's what I mostly did. And then once it like took off, I kind of put content in the rearview mirror because I was established. My name was there. And then I kind of started to back up in 2019 because I realized how much content like influences other people more for motivation. Like, hey, man, if I can do it, you can do it. And then also just showing my personality and who I am versus you just buy a home and call it a day, or you just call me and call it a day, whatever the case is. I want you to be like, hey, this is my family, this is my life, this is what I do,
Mhm.
and I'm not ashamed of anything that I do. And if I'm gonna post it, like it's either you love it or you hate it. Versus then, I think I was, I think I was way, I think I was way too much into um what other people thought of me versus when I came here, it was a fresh start. And it's like, this is your second chance of showing people who you are, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, totally. Yeah, and then I think it was a good call to maybe take it a little more seriously when you're out here, because you have as cool as nice it is for Buffalo to be a small town. It's hard for newcomers to kind of come in and make a
Oh,
name
for
for yourself,
sure.
and you've done it pretty well. I
I
mean,
appreciate it.
not everybody knows who you are, but people who know who you are know like who you are,
For sure.
not just your name. They have a pretty good idea of what you're about just through your social media. Um, so, what I notice a lot of people do when they're in residential real estate or real estate in general, when they say they're going to make content or do
Yeah.
video, they're just doing listing videos.
Yeah.
And yes, you should do them. There's a little bit of value there, and I'm sure you've done a few of them. What what made you go, I don't we got to do something else? Like what was the decision to go, cuz that's how I've always been preaching it, is like
Yeah.
listing videos just don't. The only reason you should be doing a listing video, in my opinion,
For
is
sure.
to show your seller that you're going to market their house.
For sure.
Nobody's seeing that, oh, Colby posted a house, I'm going to go buy it. And if someone's working with a real estate agent already, the chances are that by the time you post that video for that house,
Yep.
if it fits the criteria for a certain buyer, it's been given to them by their
Yep.
agent.
Yep.
So and it's something that I've always just never understood is why people think that's good enough for content
Yeah.
when you should be doing so much more. Because you don't want people, a lot of people are marketing the property, but they're never marketing themselves. And it's way more powerful for someone to go, I want Colby to help me find a house. I don't care what house it is, he'll find me it versus like them just following you because you're a different version of Zillow.
Yeah. 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 You said why? Why don't
Yeah,
I do that?
what made
Or what
you
made me go there?
realize like, hey, this isn't, I had to do something different.
Dude, I hate doing the same thing that everyone else does. And then at the same time, I find them like cringy, man. Like if I'm just gonna be 100% honest, and that's I am not saying not to do it because all everyone does them, and even Ryan Serhant will do them and all that, or whoever the big dogs are. I think personally for me, I wanted to create something that was valuable, that added something to you versus, and we talked about this too before, versus me showing this awesome house that you can't afford. Okay, how does that add value of you watching me or you following me? I want to tell you, hey, this is how I made my money and this is how I continue to make my money. Or I'm going to show you like the cool spots around Buffalo or the cool people around Buffalo or Western New York. It's not even Buffalo anymore, Western New York. And I found that a lot of people were missing who they were on camera because some people can't face that though. Some people can't put themselves out there and because we've shot stuff ourselves, here for the last year or whatever, and it just like my bright idea tanked completely, and it was like, damn, that sucked.
Mhm.
Cool, on to the next. Um, and I think showing a house, what does that do other than show the house? Like,
Yeah.
what about you? Who are you?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because Zillow will show that.
Yeah, I think like you said, what you both said, you should do it. Show the houses, shows you're active, shows you're doing stuff. But what else are you doing to get people to know who you are?
Yeah,
So that way you're not just another agent. And if I always tell people like word of mouth is huge in real estate, but if a friend tells you to go work with so and so, they're gonna look you up.
yep,
And what do you have there versus agent B, agent C,
for
who's next? If
sure.
you're all posting the same Canva stuff that's given to you by your brokerage,
Yep,
or the same drone shot of a house or a slow motion shot of the bathtub, how am I gonna know who to work with?
for sure. Yeah, yeah, and I also think that, and these are obviously just opinions, right? I think that as AI and as everything starts to develop and get smarter, what is you showing a home on video gonna provide?
Yeah, I think
You know what I
listing
mean?
listing videos at this point are the new Canva because
Yeah,
everybody's doing them. They're cheap to do.
yeah,
Like I said, you should still do them, but what else are you doing to grow your brand? And I think you've always been willing to try new stuff, whether it
yeah,
be we're gonna act like we're the news or we're gonna
yeah,
talk about different things. We're gonna go talk to businesses and get to know the area. And you've kind of, and I know I'm sounding like I'm just like, glazing you up, like you've kind of stepped over a lot of agents who have been in Buffalo for a long time in what 3 years by
2.5 years,
essentially putting yourself out there in
2 years.
as
Yeah,
many different ways as possible to now to the point where you're developing already. Where just that's sometimes that's people's like 10-year goal in real
for
estate in
sure.
Buffalo. So I think the decision to kind of dive deep into content and grow your personal brand is huge. And it'll be the nice thing is now if you ever do, you say you're a little less on the residential side and you're now developing or you want to grow your personal brand and start
Yeah.
telling people how you did it and helping them get to that point, your personal brand is solidified. Um, can you tell me a little bit about what content has done for you beyond just helping you like maybe sell some houses? Because now you are in commercial real estate and
Yeah.
a lot of that has stemmed from people finding you through your content.
I mean, from the Homestead series to the news bits to anything and everything from giving, this is the top 10 budget things. What it shows like the diversity. So I can't like someone asked me, am I more of a realtor or a builder? And I said, I'm real estate. Like that's what I do. I'm in real estate in every facet that you could possibly think of. I'm in real estate. And I think content really show that to other people because I'm not just talking about like this is why a 2 bedroom is better than a 3 bedroom. It's like, hey, this is how you build a house. At the same time, these are the things that are going on in the commercial industry around Buffalo, and these are the small businesses that are growing in Buffalo versus staying stagnant, and content painting that picture, and also high quality content painting that picture. Because I could have shot that on my iPhone, but it would have never made the waves that it did. And this last year in general, people are like, "Oh yeah, Homestead." That was just like that could have went completely sideways. You know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? The news thing, like Wingstop reached out to me on that. That could have been completely that could have went the worst way possible. Or even talking about like my brother's situation, my family situation, running these ultras. Like that's not your typical like, "Hey, let me show you this house." Because at the end of the day, like we're in a content world, but people use that word so freely where they think just like being in their car and getting on the phone and talking about interest rates. Okay, what about the 95% of people that aren't even buying a home?
Yeah.
How do you get them interested in real estate or providing some asset of generational wealth?
Mhm.
Talking about interest rates.
Yeah. No, I think content's been huge, even to the point where like people just I don't know why they always expect like, oh, if I post a video talking about interest rates, I have to get it must mean I get clients, but they're not paying
For sure.
attention or thinking about who might be seeing that. Like there might be the president of a very big commercial firm who sees you and
Yeah.
wants you to come in and talk to them because he's seen your content and they like your what you're about.
Yeah.
Um, and also like a lot of people don't think content's worth it. I've been told that a ton of times, and it always blows my mind when those same people end up doing content. But um,
That content's a waste of time.
yeah, they say content's a waste of time. Then
Oh, and marketing is a waste of time too.
yeah, they end up doing it later.
Of course.
Essentially, they just don't want to
Of
pay for
course.
it, which is fine. But you had somebody who reached out to you who was moving here from Texas.
Yeah.
Tell me that story.
Yeah, so it's a friend that I knew back in like middle school, high school, and they saw me leave from Texas to here, and they've been watching the story, and they're just like, we're kind of seeing what was going to happen. A lot of people were going to try to see what's going to happen because, of course, you always have your haters, and of course, you always have the people that support you. And some people wanted me to come here and fall flat on my face, and others wanted me to come here and see what's Colby gonna do in Buffalo, right? And they've been seeing, and they literally came to our new build that we're building, loved it. Not quite for them, but they saw through the content, through the small businesses and what's out here and how much I enjoyed it. And also they saw how the community embraced me once I showed them what Western New York Buffalo has to offer. Like it is a really cool spot. So they actually flew here and checked it all out, and they're gonna move here next summer.
That's
Well, this
wild.
summer. Shoot,
Yeah,
we're in 2025.
that's wild.
It's
That's
nuts.
so cool to hear that someone found you online and they connected with you because your content's in the right place of
Yeah,
showing not interest rates, but it's like maybe sure you should know what the interest rates are in the area, but
for sure.
here's what the area is like. Here's how great
Yeah.
Buffalo is. Because I know just through talking to you, people when they say, "Oh, you're moving from Texas to Buffalo," it's like
Yeah.
people just think Buffalo is like the
I,
seventh ring of hell.
I know. I do. The Arctic Circle,
Yeah,
Alaska, Antarctica, Toronto or Canada, you name it. I've heard it. And at the same time too, that's what I gotta tell people too. It's like, dude, I've heard the most negative stuff about moving out here from everyone, from people that lived here or people that live here and people that don't live here. And I could have chosen to be pessimistic about it. I could have sat here and said there is no success in Buffalo. There are no opportunities in Buffalo. And I took that as the challenge. I said, well, let me show you what's in Buffalo, and let me actually start building again in Buffalo. And even then, dude, it's like now everyone's coming back around like, "Oh, we always believed in you." Maybe that's what makes me work hard is the chip on my shoulder because I
mhm,
always had it as a kid,
yeah. And
you
I
know?
think it's really cool now to see like, because I have known you a decent amount of the time that you've been in
Yeah,
Buffalo,
yeah, for sure.
to have people to kind of see that turn around, and it's really cool to see like you're building houses already and
And we
stuff like
talked
that.
about this last year. I
Mhm.
didn't I didn't have I didn't have no idea how it was gonna be done. But when people say, "What are you gonna do?" I'm like, "We're gonna build in Buffalo." And that's a whole nother story in
Yeah,
itself
I have to have you back on.
because that's the same thing. It's the same processes,
Mhm.
right? You have denial, you have people that are going to tell you it's impossible, and then it's whether you go run with that or you say, I think it's possible, and just keep getting no's until you get a yes,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, I always want to help people who are video agency owners or
For sure.
videographers make more money. And I want to get everybody that comes into contact with me to make $10,000 a month, which is a lot of money. But
Yeah.
my message is it's simple. It's not easy. I tell people come up with a package. It's $1,000 a month
Yep.
and sell it to 10 people.
Yep.
That's it. Super
Yep.
simple, but not the easiest thing in the world. So it what it comes down to is you have to have the right messaging for whatever your niche is.
I agree.
And that's kind of why I'm having different industry experts on here. Um, and whether that be, I think we just had a car detailer on. We have you who's like more was real estate, now it's more personal branding and stuff like that, but you're
For
still
sure.
doing content. So what would it take for a videographer or someone like myself to stand out when just shooting you a DM um, to pitch you some video services? Like what would you be listening for or looking for?
Hmm. I think being genuine, first of all, not having something that looks like a group, like just a blast text that you're just gonna send to everyone. Because dude, I get those like 4 or 5 times a day. Um, Something that shows value, and also like a creative aspect. You know, you have a bunch of videographers out there that are okay with just shooting it, editing it, and it's like subpar, and they're like, post it. I'm gonna post this that looks like absolute crap, has no meaning to it, and I paid you money for it. You know what it, you
Right.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's like, and then you have someone like, oh, dude, the last thing I want to hear is like, oh, you shot that on your iPhone, or like, oh, you shoot it yourself.
Yeah. Do you think there's value in obviously we want looking good and sounding good video? Is there any like value to what the videographers bring to the table in terms of ideas and a strategy of sorts, or is there anything that's beyond looking and sounding good that is helpful for anybody who's just looking to grow a personal brand?
I think strategy for sure. Like, what does this look like? Um, how does it look? And then also like talking to like a videographer or someone that wants to grow their business, run away from the people that think that just like 3 videos are gonna make them $100,000. You know what I mean? That
Mhm.
you're like providing that kind of um that acquisition as far as like, hey, I believe me, I can make you $1 million if you just shoot 10 videos. Like if the guy thinks or the girl think whoever wants to shoot this video thinks that they're gonna see results within, I would even say it, we're barely peaking at a year.
Mhm.
And we've been shooting content after being the most consistent I ever been in content. But obviously, like if I tell you an idea, you're gonna tell me if it's bad or not. Versus you just want to make a quick buck and shoot it and then send it to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think kind of what I think is the person, whoever you're working with and trying to make a pitch to, you have to have a strategic aspect,
Yep.
understand that like a plan to be consistent and how it's going to make them get their results over time. And yeah, don't if someone's saying, "Hey, you're gonna make a shit ton of money off the
Yeah.
1 month of working with me,"
Yeah.
you should walk away from that
A hundred
person.
percent.
Um, so yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunity for anybody to come up with a package that says, "Hey, for $1,000 a month or for $1,500 a month,
Yep.
we're gonna work together. These are what based off talking to you. Here's some of your goals. Here's some of the ways we should tackle them and talk
Yep.
to your target audience. And here's the plan of how we're gonna be consistent."
Yep.
Because so many people will be consistent for 2 weeks, just like running or going to the gym.
Yeah.
They'll do it for 2 weeks. They don't see any results, and then they're done.
Yep.
But they don't understand it takes a lot of time to get a big result.
Yeah. And I started shooting content once basically once I got here. Or once so I'm running on 2 years now. This January I've been having my active real estate license. And I've been shooting content since day one I got my license. My first video was me at the pier, Duncan Pier, snow up to my ankles, and me saying, "Hey, my family just and I just moved from Dallas to Western New York, blah blah, blah, or from Texas to Western New York." And then I just was like, I got to go all in because the only way that I was able to make the dent that I am now and be where I'm at today was purely off of content. Because if I would have stayed quiet, how are you gonna know me?
Right. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. And I guess one last thing that I just thought about too, when someone reaches out to you to pitch you content, how important is it that if you go to their page, they're also doing the content?
100%. If I just see like a couple of photos and like, and I don't, dude, it's mostly, I don't know if it's bots or what. Well, no, there's a few people that are, local-ish that's reached out to me.
Mhm.
And also, I'm gonna look at, am I gonna have chemistry with this person? Because no matter what, like you and I have to have chemistry in order to do this,
Mhm.
in order to shoot. If I come in and we just don't like each other, you're gonna be off on camera. You're gonna feel some type of way. You're gonna think your ideas that are getting shut down are personal when they're not. They're just like, dude, I don't think it's a smart idea. So I think what I really look at is, how does this person make me better at shooting content, strategizing on my content, and making my brand pop out more than the person next to me,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I think that's what everybody does, and that's why content's so important.
For
Because no
sure.
matter, even if you're looking to me to make video for you, looking to you to help build their next house,
Yeah.
the content they don't care about necessarily what you do or the technical side. They want to know like, am I going to get along with this person? Because a lot of the
Yeah.
stuff where there's a lot of trust has to be built over time to make a decision.
Mhm.
Content is key for doing that, and I think videographers are so bad for some reason at telling people they need to do video, then they don't do video themselves,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
just end up being the fat personal trainer.
Yeah.
That's how I like to think of it. But
You gotta get those reps in too. You
yeah,
know?
because you learn so much of like people. I coach a lot of people where they're like, "Well, what am I going to talk about?" I'm like, "Well, that's a question your client's going to ask you,
Yeah.
and if you can't solve it for yourself, how do you expect to solve it for them?"
Yeah.
And you make a lot of mistakes. You mess up the
Yeah.
audio on your own content first, and
Yeah.
you got to get the reps in and practice with yourself versus making people pay for it.
Yeah.
And you're still
I mean,
learning.
it's like building a house, man, like, or building anything, building your knowledge of something, right? I didn't just like get out of the gate in 2015 and sit there and be like, "Okay, I know everything in real estate." You'll never learn.
Mhm.
You'll never learn.
Yep, you gotta put the reps in. Well, thank you for coming on,
Yeah, of course, man.
for coming
Appreciate
in,
you having
and
me.
obviously for trusting me with your video content over the
Yeah.
past years. And it's been a pleasure. It's always one of my favorite people to work with.
Likewise,
And
man.
I hope someone gets something out of this video. And I think what you have like 100-mile run home right after this. So you didn't
Yeah.
walk here, you ran here.
Yeah, I ran here. Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
Why
well,
not?
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
No, appreciate you, brother. Thank you.